Hey guys, welcome back. Maybe I need to sage stick my house and my space. It's been a really rough month. Many reasons. I won't bore you with it, but most recently I'm just kind of feeling like anything that can go wrong, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. I'm even having difficulty speaking right now. I don't know what's happening. It almost seems like the universe is telling me, go back to bed. Because this isn't going to work today. But I'm determined. We're here. Welcome back. I really wanted to talk about some of the best books I have read in 2025 so far. I think when I put together the best books of the year by the end of the year, I do try to really narrow it down to like the very best of the best, like a top 5 list. But there's a lot of books on the list right now. And I think that as stressful as this past month has been for me, and my family, I just really want to talk about things that bring me joy. So I didn't necessarily put these in any order. Alright, the first one I read is A New Lease on Death by Olivia Black. This was actually a book that I saw pop up on NetGalley to get the ARC copy, and I did end up getting approved for the ARC, but unfortunately I didn't read it during the time that I had the ARC before publishing. So when it was published, I checked it out, and let me just say, this book was such a joy. It was such a treat. It's a paranormal, cozy mystery. It follows this young woman who moves into this apartment, and this apartment is actually haunted by an older woman, and then the guy across the hall ends up dead. So the younger woman and the ghost end up teaming up to solve the crime. But as a subplot, we are also alluding to there is something we don't know about the death of the woman who is a ghost now. And I feel like the development of that mystery is so good. I don't really read a lot of mysteries, but I have definitely been wanting to get into them more. I have actually since picked up a few more cozy mysteries that are kind of a lot like the Sookie Stackhouse books. I actually started reading another Charlaine Harris cozy mystery, the Harper Connolly series, that I really like. It's also on this list. I forgot to grab the book because when I made this list about a month ago, and I have since read this other book. This is the beginning of a new series, and I'm absolutely going to be checking out the next one as soon as it comes out. This was so much fun. I really love the characters. I love the mystery development. And I really love how our main character, she doesn't see the ghostly friend, but they have developed really creative ways of communicating, and I really liked that part of it. Since we are going ahead and talking about cozy mysteries, we're going to go ahead and talk about the next one, Gravesite. This is the first in the Harper Connolly mystery series by Charlaine Harris. Charlaine Harris is the author of all the Sookie Stackhouse books, which I read most of those. So I did want to try some of her other series. I did try the Shakespeare one, and I thought that it was going to be like a paranormal, but it literally has nothing to do with Shakespeare, and it's just not really paranormal. It just takes place in Shakespeare, Texas, which I was really set up for something completely different than what I was expecting. So I ended up DNFing that series, getting rid of the books that I had, but I did want to read this one. This is definitely paranormal. So our main character, Harper, and her brother, Tolliver, are traveling around the country. They work together. Our main character was struck by lightning, and it has left her with a peculiar gift. She can sense dead bodies and then see the last moments before they died. And so people end up hiring her to help them gain closure, help them figure out what happened to their loved ones. I absolutely loved this. I thought it was so much fun, so interesting. I really love our characters. I feel like I have so much more to say about this, but I don't necessarily want to get into it all that much in this video. I think that this was a perfect time to read this book because it is kind of getting into autumn in this book as well. And that was actually a surprise. I was actually doing a little bit of research though on the Charlaine what other people were saying about the series, and apparently there is some small crossovers with some of the characters from like this book too. this series to the Sookie Stackhouse series, and then I think another one of her series, maybe it's the Aurora Tea Garden series, which I do want to read those, or the Midnight Texas series. I think it's actually the Midnight Texas series. Anyways, some of their characters kind of like make little cameos into some of her other ones. So I'm actually just so intrigued by that. It makes me want to binge read all of her books so that I can see what that's all about. Apparently that's something I really, really love in books. The next one I would like to talk about, this one is more of an honorable mention, Moon Called by Patricia Briggs. And this is the first one in the Mercy Thompson series. Urban Fantasy Shifter series, our main character is actually a coyote shifter, but she ends up working very closely with wolf shifters or werewolves. Yeah, wolf shifters. And Mercy Thompson is also like a mechanic. Anyways, this one's pretty slow, but I did really enjoy it. The time that I picked this up, I was so burnt out on picking up these books that just assault you with so many graphic scenes, spicy scenes. I just really wanted the fantasy elements and less of the just going at it hard spicy scenes. Somebody told me that this would be really good because it is clean. That's not a really good terminology, honestly, because it's not like it's dirty to have that stuff in. It's just like a personal preference that I don't really like. So these are non-spicy books, non-spicy urban fantasy books, and so I really was just, it was like really refreshing to just read a fantasy that talks about wolves and coyotes and all of that kind of stuff without all of the excessive romance. This is a series I am really interested in continuing on. I actually found the next 2 books in the series that I have up there that I'll probably be picking up fairly soon. I don't like to sit on those too long because the longer I sit on them without picking up the next one is the more unlikely I am to continue on with the series, and I don't really want to do that. The next one, this was so much fun to read. It feels like a really big accomplishment to have finished reading this book, and that is House of Flame and Shadow. This is the 3rd Crescent City novel, and I am 100% caught up with every single Sarah J. Maas that has been published. I am so excited to be at this place because my husband actually did end up pre-ordering this book for me, and I was so excited to get it, but this is a commitment. You can't just be picking it up on a whim. You need to commit to this. And so I just kept putting it off because I was reading this or reading that. And as soon as I'd finish one small book, I'd pick up another one. And before I know it, all this time had passed. So I finally ended up picking this up because one of my good friends had just finished it. And I was like, oh my gosh, she started reading these books so much later than I did. And now she's finished before I'm finished. So I needed to get to it. And man, was it the best thing I'd done because this book was so, so good. I can't really say much about it because it is the 3rd in a series, but the 2nd Crescent City book I did feel very disappointed by because I really just did not like the main characters in that book. The first book set up for really fun, cool characters, but then the second book really let me down in that aspect. I did feel like I was getting very confused because it's very complex system, politics, all these, just so many characters. I did end up watching Carrie Reed's recaps of all the books to prepare for this one, and then I've watched that of this book as well to put it all together, because as much as I enjoyed these, there are definitely aspects of the political system, the magic system, that I still felt like I didn't understand very clearly. So that definitely really helped solidify everything and bring it all together. So big shout out to her for even making those videos, because that has got to be a lot of work. This is definitely a big highlight of the year. It probably will make it to the end of the year as being one of the best of the year, but the next one I want to talk about is Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. This book has been on my radar for a really long time because Shay Earnshaw is an automatic read. I fell in love with her book, The Wicked Deep, so much, and so I've wanted to read everything she has published. We have Witches. I would kind of say this is more magical realism, more subtle than even The Wicked Deep on the Talk of the Witches. At this point, it's really just kind of a rumor. Nora Walker is part of the Walker Witches, only she doesn't really have any special powers. She's just basically a normal person, except she does seem to have this connection to the woods. Well, one night the woods leads her to a boy named Oliver. He's also the same boy that went missing in the woods about 3 days prior. I think it was like 3 days prior. No, 3 weeks prior. Okay, Oliver is the same boy who disappeared from the camp of wayward boys weeks ago in the middle of the worst snowstorm in years. He should be dead, but here he is, alive and left in the woods with no memory of the time that he'd been missing. So we go through this meditative book, quiet book, as she's kind of discovering what the story is and trying to help Oliver recount what has happened. And I will say, the twist caught me by surprise, big time. Very good. Loved it. All right, the next one is Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the first in a duology, and I have the second book ready to read. This was so much fun. This one's been on my radar for a really long time. A YouTuber I used to watch very much when I first started my YouTube channel mentioned this book. I feel like it's been on my radar since then, but then it was also recommended to read if you're a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, because it does involve like monster hunters. So we are following our main character. She's also a Native American. So our main character, Maggie, is a monster hunter. She's also supernaturally gifted, which I thought was really interesting because with the fact that she is a Native American, they have this whole system of tapping into your family's magic, and for the most part she's normal, but when it's triggered, she can pull from that magical source to give her power to fight the bad. So she and this guy, Kai, who's like a family friend, end up pairing up and going on this quest, looking for clues, solving the mystery, trying to track down this monster, and that whole dynamic is really fun and interesting. I really like the characters. Also, Maggie has this past that she's kind of dealing with and coping with, and she's finding it difficult because this person in the past had betrayed her in some way. And this was just really good. I'm excited to read the next one in the series. The next one is A Certain Slant of Light and Under the Light. This is a duology by Laura Whitcomb, and this is a ghost story, and it blew my mind, to be honest. I still have been thinking about and feeling A Certain Slant of Light. So I'm holding up this book because this is the book that I ended up with. This is the book that I had. I picked this up somewhere, I guess, and I was like, oh man, it's the second in a series. So then I got the name of the first book, but I never could find the first book anywhere, and then it actually popped up as a book to read if you like Twilight, I think. So it has really been on my radar for a while to read. So A Certain Slant of Light follows this ghost, and something bad has happened to her. You could tell it maybe involves drowning, something like that, but you're not really sure because you're in her perspective, and she explains what it's like to be her, I guess. The only way she can hold on to reality is attaching herself to a person, an individual, but she has to follow that person around and haunt this person, and then when that individual passes on, she goes to the bad place where she starts feeling this really bad feeling like she's drowning, and so she will desperately try to find the next person to latch onto so she doesn't have to go through that. So in the present day, she is following this teacher who is also a writer. She really likes this person. She loves to read. She wants to listen to his stories, but she's can't control her world around her, so she's at the mercy of, like, whenever he's writing, then she can read over his shoulder, or whenever he's reading, she can read over his shoulder. And she follows him to the school every day where he teaches, and she's going through his life with him when he meets somebody and stops writing so much. She's kind of resentful of that because that's her one thing she really has, I guess. And so she's like trying to find ways to like get him to write again because he's like squandering it away. And I don't know, like it's kind of interesting going through all that with her. Also, being a ghost, no one can see you until one day at the school. There's a student in his class who can see her, and so they start talking. Yeah, I don't want to spoil the rest for you, but it is so incredibly good. it's twisted. The thing that makes this book so good, the series so good, is because the writing is absolutely gorgeous. It blows my mind how the author can convey such sadness and melancholy and atmosphere and loneliness in this character, and you have so much empathy for her, and it's just really good. Plus, both books are very short like this, and they really pack a punch for the length that they are. Okay, the next one is definitely going to be making it to the very end of the year, and that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I absolutely loved this book. This follows the 50th Hunger Games when Haymitch goes to the games, and what the world looked like back then, how unorganized they were. He was the first District 12 winner. You know, it's just, oh my god, this book was so good. I loved it. There's so many nods to the original trilogy, and there's even tie-ins to A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and it's just so expertly done. I feel like there was a lot of things that really surprised me in this. It's definitely not a perfect book by any means. I did feel like there were some things that could have been done better. For instance, sometimes the emotional response to some things didn't really make sense when the emotional response to other things were like really heavy. There were a couple instances that I felt like we just kind of rushed through those things, but as a whole, this was such a treat to the series. And Haymitch is just such a fun character. So to get more from Haymitch's life and perspective and understanding his point of view more, like what made him the Haymitch that we know from the original trilogy. Well, it all comes together. It really does. So excellent. Then we have The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. This is the second in the Castellane series. I don't know how many books are going to be in the series. I'm only assuming that it'll probably be a trilogy, because every other series or set of books she's come out with always come out in sets of 3. So 3 is the magic number, it seems like. So I'm just assuming that. Anyways, this is the second book after Swordcatcher. Swordcatcher is about a prince and an orphan. And the royal family goes and picks out this orphan because he looks very much like their son, the prince. And for the rest of his life, he grows up learning how to be the prince and stepping in his shoes, mostly for safety matters, but sometimes for other purposes as well. He also has a fake identity, and because his whole mission in his life has been to protect the prince, he starts taking it upon himself to go sleuthing around to find out information that could potentially be a danger to the prince. And it ends up getting him in deep with a lot of other things. And one of those things is The Ragpicker King. It's wild, man. It's wild. This is her first adult fantasy series. And I wouldn't say that, like, okay, there's a lot of other authors out there that have mostly written YA and then they release an adult series, and it's very much like they go hard on the intimacy being what makes it an adult series. This is not really that. These are adult characters in the sense that they're gambling, smoking, doing drugs. The maturity level is there that matches an adult character versus a young adult character, and that is done so well. Like, you feel like these are adults. You don't feel like these are young adults maturity wise doing adult things, because that is really strange. I don't like that. That was done so incredibly well. But yeah, excellent series, loving it. Alright, the next one is technically, again, the second book in a series, Shadow of Night. I ended up reading A Discovery of Witches at the end of last year, and then finished up with reading this one this year. And I did get into the third book, but I did end up DNFing the third book. But it doesn't take away from how phenomenal the first 2 books have been for me. They blow my mind and how good they are. But Shadow of Night really stands out. Love our characters, love the complexity of the plot, the magic system, and in particular in this one, there is some time travel, and it is done so good. It's so detailed. That's very good. All right, the next one is My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This is completely different. This is a rom-com, I guess. I guess you would call this like a rom-com, but with vampires. It's exactly what the title says. My roommate is a vampire. This young woman is desperate for an apartment. She finds this steal of a deal. It is so cheap to be a roommate of this person. At first, it's like this deal is too good to pass up. There's something wrong with the situation. So she goes into it apprehensively. Now, the roommate is a very elusive kind of person. She talks to him via email. She's never really seen him face to face. When she moves in, they're communicating through like a note on the counter. And she does notice some things about him, like he kind of talks funny. This was such a fun book. I absolutely love this book. And she does have more books that are like this. I think the next one is My Vampire Plus one. I don't know. I did start it, actually. I haven't gotten into it too much. So I'm hoping I like it just as much. And then I think there's going to be another one that's supposed to be published at some point. Okay. The next one that's definitely making it to the top 5. I probably already said 5 books that are making it to the top 5, huh? This one definitely is, though. And that is The Otherwhere Post by Emily J. Taylor. I absolutely love this book. I found it so interesting, refreshing, different than a lot of other books. I keep running into a lot of books that have royalty in some way, and while I really do like that, I'm honestly a little burnt out. This is a magic system that relies on magical writing, magical letters, magical inks, and these people who have this ability go to this school to learn how to hone in that skill, and then they work for the Otherwhere Post delivering these magical letters. And these magical letters do all different kinds of things, just depending on how you write them, which inks you're using. I don't even know. It gets pretty complex, it's like chemistry. There's also really high stakes if you get it wrong, but our main character sneaks into the school because she needs answers about what has happened to her father. She's actually a pariah. How do I even explain this book? Okay, so we're following our main character who goes by a different name because her name is tarnished by the murder that her father caused. She needs answers. She gets a mysterious letter that alludes to the fact that somebody knows what happened or that he was actually innocent. And so she is determined. She even thought he was a murderer, which is really difficult for her. So when there's this potential that he was wrongfully accused, she jumps at the opportunity. She becomes desperate to find out the answers because she also lives with the stain of her father's reputation. So she wants his name cleared. So this leads her into getting into the school, and she ends up getting paired with the headmaster's son, who's kind of going through it himself. He is very we don't know if he's talented or not. I don't want to give anything away about that because it is kind of part of the plot and part of his story. So these two get paired together and it's just so good. I love these two. They don't fit into any trope. I will say that. I don't think that there's a trope made for these two. And I find that so interesting. I thought they were all covered. Who would have thought that there is certain dynamics that have yet been discovered? So good. Loved it. Also, the magic system is really interesting in the fact that it's really difficult. There's really high stakes to it. It doesn't just come to you magically. You can just snap your fingers and you have all these things. No, you have to work at it. And even really talented people can still make mistakes. And that's really cool. So I know that that's something that a lot of fantasy readers talk about is these different magic systems, how our characters are just magically inclined, or they just wake up one day and they're the chosen one, and you won't find that in this book at all. Okay, and then the last one I want to talk about is a book called So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This is a horror novel. This is definitely an honorable mention. I had a lot of fun with this book. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's going to make it to the top 5 books, but it definitely deserves a mention, because this is an author that I'm determined to read everything that she's ever written, and I think I'm super close. I literally have to read the book that she just published, Play Nice, and then I think she has another book that's not, it doesn't look like it is a horror book, because all the other books that she has written are like in the horror genre. But I saw this pop up on her profile on Goodreads. I gotta backtrack and try to find this book so I can read it, because I want to do a full discussion video and a tier ranking of all of her books when I read them all. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can go ahead and subscribe, click the bell, and be notified when I post videos. It's probably going to be a little while, but I'm actively working on trying to be able to put this together by the end of the year. Just FYI. But yeah, So Thirsty is a story about vampires, and we have these two best friends, and they're really different people, different personalities. Well, at least they are now. Our main character used to party really hard until she had this really traumatizing accident, and now she plays her life incredibly safe, but her best friend still is like this party person. So she takes them on this girls' night out or whatever, and she's like, hey, we're going to this party, and then like our main character's like, what? You don't know these people, you're not gonna ask any questions? She's like, come on, just like lay your hair down, let's go, who cares, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that could happen? Well, vampires. I won't spoil any more. It's super fun. I liked it. And I think what I liked most about this, though, is the friendship that these two have, and what our main character ends up learning about herself through all of this. And it's kind of like a rediscovering yourself. Rachel Harrison writes mostly adult characters. I don't think she's written any books that actually have young adult characters, so they're all adult characters. Yeah, she's like a very definitive style and some things like that I just really like. Anyways, those are the best books that I have read so far this year, and I'm hoping that I will continuously read some more really good books. It's almost October, so we have about 3 months left until the end of the year, and I'm really pushing for more 5-star reads, more books that I can add to the top 5 list. Throughout this year, I've been really focusing on doing Read It or and Haul It, and this is something I'm going to talk about a little bit more later, but I don't know that any of the books I really chose out of the jar are books that I really love. And it's been kind of an eye-opener, so I'm like, I do a lot better when I just pick books based off of, what's really grabbing my attention in the moment when I'm reading it, versus being chosen a book that I now need to read. Anyways, food for thought. Alright guys, thank y'all so much for watching. Let me know what some of your favorite books of the year are. Have you read any of these books? Thank y'all so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.